So we have asked the Deputy President to come today and address this important Indaba about national government work and efforts in the implementation of the National Development Plan, particularly as it relates to jump-starting and kick-starting and reigniting a type of growth that we talk about here, an inclusive and sustainable growth. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give a big round of applause to the Deputy President, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Premier, Chairperson of the African National Congress in this province, Comrade Paul Mashatile, the leaders of the governing party who are here, MECs, mayors of our various metros in this province, business leaders, community leaders, labor leaders. I especially want to welcome Secretary General of Chama cha Mapinduzi, my colleague, Comrade Kinana from Tanzania, as you have heard. I invited him to come and not to listen to me as such, but to be just in our presence and to see what one of our key provinces is doing in making efforts to grow the economy. He's here to have consultations with me. We work together in relation to many things, but more especially in relation to South Sudan. He was and continues to be involved in the peace process in South Sudan between the ANC and Chama cha Mapinduzi, the ruling party of Tanzania, and the SPLM in South Sudan. We are involved in trying to stabilize and unite the SPLM in South Sudan. He led the process to have the Arusha Declaration signed, which really consolidated the peace process in South Sudan, in that we needed to unite the various factions of the party before peace could be consolidated at broad country level. So that is why he's here, and let us thank him for the work that he continues to do for progress in Africa. I'm sitting at a table, so you know who I've been sitting with. I've been sitting at a table where the Premier is, where the MEC for Human Settlements, Paul Mashatile, Chairperson of the ANC here, where our mayors are, the mayors of the 3 metros, and our 2 other MECs, MEC Krisi and Maile. I'm sitting there like a fly on the wall, and I'm listening to the conversation. Now, these are comrades in the ANC together with me, and sometimes when one thinks that when they get together, all they'll ever talk about is politics or the list process. Now, I thought I was at the wrong table, because what I heard them talk about, and I was just very quiet, they are talking about how can we drive the economy of Tshwane, Ekurhuleni, and Gauteng, and Johannesburg. What can we do for this corridor? How can we drive this sector of the economy to create more and more jobs? It was like I'm sitting in a board meeting of some company. And this is the level of commitment that you are getting in relation to the leadership of this province. Give them a round of applause. And it is truly an honor to have been asked to come here, not to come and talk about politics. Even this is the season when we should really be talking about politics, where I should be trying to win your votes and get every one of you to vote for the winning party. That's what I should be doing. I've been programmed to do just that. Since we adjourned Parliament, the word was you're all programmed to go and campaign for a victory of the ANC. But now the Premier has messed it up for me today, because he said, DP, come here and talk about the economy. So it's a real pleasure to have heard them talk about the economy and to be here also to talk about this economy of this province and this nation in terms of how we can grow our economy. This initiative of this Indaba, as the Premier briefed me, I found it quite attractive because it is an initiative that places inclusive economic growth at the center of the efforts that we all should get involved in building a better society. And it is about building enduring partnerships as well between government, business, and labor, as well as our various communities for long-term job creation. It is, in my view, if I talk politics for a while, it is about fulfilling and realizing the goals of the Freedom Charter, which our forebears adopted in this very province in 1955. The Freedom Charter, for us in the ruling party, remains the lodestar and the guide for a life that is free of discrimination, free of deprivation and want. Amongst the most profound statements that came out of the Freedom Charter from the Congress of the People is that South Africa belongs to all who live in it. This statement was a declaration that all South Africans have a right, in a way an inalienable right, to an equal share of the country's natural resources. They must share in the ownership, the control, and the management of the means of production of our economy. They must all have a fair share of the national income of our public resources. And as the Freedom Charter proclaims, the national wealth of our country, which is really the heritage of all South Africans, shall be restored to the people. That, for me, is the starting point when I talk about the economy. This Indaba, therefore, seeks to advance this objective by unlocking this province's potential for inclusive growth. The Gauteng provincial government has recognized that this can only be achieved, can only be realized if there is partnership and collaboration through a shared vision and a common program for growth. I therefore applaud the Gauteng government for coming up with this initiative, but for also clasping to it the notion of collaboration and partnership. By involving all stakeholders, by bringing such energy and rigor to this task, the province is forging what I would call a new economic path for this province. This Indaba, ladies and gentlemen, aims to give effect to the National Development Plan, and in doing so, it recognizes that the NDP is a plan for the nation and not just for the government, and least of all, for the ruling party. It reflects our shared aspirations as the people of this country and provides a course of action that we can all pursue collectively and together. The NDP identifies the creation of employment as the most important instrument for tackling poverty and inequality in our country. To achieve this, we need faster and much more inclusive growth. We need an economy that serves the interests and meets the needs of our people, and move beyond achieving growth that does not serve the interests of the people. Investment in infrastructure is key to all this. Today, we are in the midst of the largest infrastructure build program yet undertaken in the history of this country, and possibly in the history of this continent. We're investing in water, in energy, in transport, in logistics and information technology, and the residents of this province are live and active witnesses to the sea change that this province has gone through in relation to infrastructure development. We're investing in hospitals, in universities, in colleges, schools and clinics, on the social infrastructure build. I don't think the ANC government, both nationally and at provincial level, can ever be equaled by any other government this country has ever seen. None whatsoever. Not only does this investment create work opportunities and stimulate economic growth, it also reduces the cost of doing business and improves our capacity for faster growth. The NDP also calls for support to those economic sectors with great growth potential and which will create jobs in significant numbers. These are the very sectors that the Premier and the others sitting at that table were talking about. They're talking about sectors that need to be boosted, sectors that have the great potential of creating the most jobs, and that is now their focus. These sectors include mining, agriculture, manufacturing, tourism, and the green economy. Through measures like the Industrial Policy Action Plan, government is working to develop and diversify our country's economy's productive capacity. Government is committed to supporting domestic manufacturing and developing the country's supplier base. While it is essential that government creates a conducive environment for business, there is much that government can and is doing to provide direct support to key sectors. And this is the exciting part of this discussion or this equation. And I keep going to that conversation because I was not part of it. Because quite often when we talk about economic growth, we tend to look at one sector, one of the key stakeholders, and we say business. Business must grow the economy, they must create the jobs. The little conversation that I overheard at that table was government must play a key role in promoting the growth sectors of our economy. So government sitting at that table, both at provincial and at the metro level, sees its role, a changed role, a role of being the engine of instigating the growth of our economy. This, colleagues, must be welcomed, that the intellectual capacity that's sitting at that table has its head properly screwed on. Applaud them for that. Now, earlier we heard about the automotive industry, and building on the enormous success, the unbelievable success of the automotive sector. And we just heard at Cabinet and applauded that at VW in the Cape, our factory there, amongst 13 global factories in the world, has come up number 1 in terms of its productivity and producing quality cars. Now, that begins to tell you that this automotive industry that we are talking about, this automotive industry that is resident here, that belongs to Gauteng as well, is an automotive industry that is a great resource to continue propelling the economy of this province. And government is looking at establishing more manufacturing hubs and pumping through incentives programs to various other sectors. We have seen how when government supports a particular sector of the economy, the automotive one is proof of that. This country can really start to pump and emerge as one amongst the top in the world. This is the strength of the South African people, the strength of our economy, and the capability of this country as a whole. Alongside this work, we have undertaken an intensive campaign to massively expand local procurement. A number of you are probably business people, and it is in the local procurement where we are saying we want locally made goods, that you will find space, you will find opportunities to progress. It is not only Hlaudi at the SABC who is talking about local this, local that. We are also talking about local made goods. Initiatives like Local Procurement Accord provide a platform for social partners. I see you love Hlaudi's movies, I can see that. Government departments and state-owned enterprises are implementing the Buy Local campaign for specific designated goods. The other program that is a major one, in which we're pumping a lot of money, is the Black Industrialist Program, which is being introduced to unlock the potential of black entrepreneurs and contribute to the reindustrialization of our economy. We have significantly expanded our focus also on small and medium enterprises. We are working to improve financial and other support to broaden access to market opportunities and to remove the regulatory obstacle to their growth and sustainability. Now, I was in Kigali recently and marveled at the way in which the people of Kigali were telling us at the World Economic Forum that in Rwanda, they now have removed all the obstacles and they can now form companies within a matter of hours. The president of Rwanda received somebody from London, and this person said, "Mr. President, I hear you have made such great progress because now companies can be formed in Rwanda in 4 hours." And he said, "Who told you that?" And he said, "No, somebody told." He says, "No, he was wrong. We form companies in 3 hours." So when I came back, I told Minister Rob Davis, I said, in Rwanda, they form companies in 3 hours. We should also do the same. He says, "DP, when everything is in place, we form companies in 30 minutes. So we are removing all the obstacles. I was mesmerized and hypnotized by President Kagame because he was telling me all this. But our Minister of Trade and Industry said, no, we can do better than that. We do it in 30 minutes. And central to the economic future of our country is the development of the skills of our people. Ensuring access to quality education is therefore the most significant, effective and enduring investment that we can ever make. This is particularly important in a country with such a young population. Our youth are our greatest asset and resource. And our young people are hungry for education. We have seen what has been happening during the course of the past few months. It is only through effective education and skills that we can unlock the potential of our nation. We meet here, colleagues, under very difficult economic circumstances. As we work to overcome the dreadful legacy of colonialism and apartheid, we must confront the immediate challenges that have weakened global demand, that have lowered commodity prices, and the impact these have had on our economy. Now, these are external factors, but we have our own internal factors which we need to deal with. We must contend with a number of challenges that we face. And the extent of these economic challenges is underscored by the announcement this morning that our economy contracted by 1.2% in the first quarter, as was announced by our statistician general, Dep President Cyril, who's sitting here. I wish he had glasses that could have seen those numbers differently, but he was reporting reality. This highlights the singular importance of decisive action that we need to take to strengthen our economy, to stimulate growth, and to increase employment. In support of the 9-point plan, which was announced by President Zuma, we have had to have business, labor, and government working together like what this Indaba is intended to do. And colleagues, it was through working together that we were able to convince the rating agencies not to dump this country into junk status. It was through working together as Minister of Finance and business leaders and labor leaders, for the very first time in the history of this country, went on a journey together to go and see rating agencies and investors. And as it has turned out extremely positively for us, even Fitch, just a few hours ago, announced that they are not going to dump us into junk status. They are going to retain us where we are, but they're also going to say we are stable, because we are stable, and we need to act like that. And it is through working together to address the challenges that we face. The 9-point plan, when it was announced, a number of people thought this is just one of those plans. But it was a most meaningful plan, because out of that 9-point plan, the government demonstrated that when faced with tough economic challenges and choices, we are able to live up to that challenge and to address the difficult issues that need to be addressed. We had an electricity challenge. Our electricity was getting a number of factories to stand still or to shut down, and we have solved that. And through focused attention, we were able to address the problems at Eskom. And as part of that 9-point plan, we started looking more introspectively at the agricultural sector, particularly with agro-processing. We started focusing more on beneficiation. But the most important part for me was how we were able to start focusing on a sector of our economy which we had not been focusing on, the ocean economy. It was when we held the Phakisa process on the ocean economy that we started unlocking hidden opportunities. And today, we are now going to be increasing our aquaculture, fish development and production. We're now building boats and tugboats that are being exported elsewhere in the world. We are now focusing on more and more investments on the oceans economy, up to 70 billion rand of possible investments are now going to be possible in the oceans economy, and the jobs that are going to be created run into their tens and tens of thousands. And that came about because we decided to focus on specific areas. And this takes me to the conversation that I overheard at that table. At that table, they were talking about focusing on certain sectors. So don't be surprised when those leaders, those mayors, those MECs, that premier come up with areas of focus, because focusing on certain sectors to unlock the energy and the investment that we can have in those sectors is clearly the way to go. The oceans economy has proven that for us. We have demonstrated common purpose and a shared sense of urgency. We have it in us as a nation, as a people, as business leaders, as labor leaders, as government leaders. We have it in us to build consensus, to find solutions, and ultimately to prevail. This is what we have. And colleagues, this is our DNA. A DNA that we were just talking loosely about. But when the hour, a crunch hour came, and we had to face the rating agencies, it kicked into gear. And today it has produced this result. We are not in junk status because of the consensus that we built. And it is for that reason that I would say the way to build our economy here in Gauteng is to do what the theme of this conference is saying. To be able to sit down and talk about what needs to be done to create jobs, what needs to be done to build businesses, to strengthen businesses, and also to streamline government processes. Gauteng as a province has a clear economic development plan with a gross domestic product that's valued at 1.3 trillion. Gauteng generates over 34% of South Africa's GDP. This province is not Mickey Mouse. It's a serious province. It generates 34% of our GDP. Now, with that, we've all got to reposition ourselves and say we belong to a province that generates so much wealth for this country. Let us look at what the NDP says. Let us look at what the 9-point plan says. And let us look at the plan that the province has. And how can we position ourselves to be key players and to make a contribution, and of course, for business people to make a profit. Gauteng plays a key role in the South African economy in every major sector except for agriculture, mining, and quarrying. This province is excellently positioned in that 40% of South Africa's manufacturing is done here, and nearly a third of the electricity and gas and water output is consumed here. It accounts for a number of wonderful outputs in terms of construction, finance. 43% of finance activity is in this province, despite Western Cape having all those big insurance companies. It is here where money is generated and then exported to Western Cape for saving there. So you generate the money and have it in your head. Real estate is also important here. And the Gauteng economy, whilst it is dominated by the tertiary sector, it is still a key sector for the productive sector of our economy. And your plan as Gauteng clearly draws on the resources and the capabilities that reside in this province. It seeks advantage in Gauteng's location. This is the best located province. It has a strength in its population, its heritage, and its history. Significantly, Gauteng's plan identifies these sectors which have the greatest potential to drive growth and employment creation. Backed by rigorous research and clear evidence, the province has chosen to privilege manufacturing services. When I first saw this word privilege, I thought it means bless. to privilege agro-processing, mineral beneficiation, and other creative industries. This province also recognizes that a thriving integrated economy requires a cooperative, mutually beneficial relationship between big and small business. Small business is a key driver of growth and job creation. It is a potential instrument for reducing inequality and increasing economic inclusion. Gauteng has become the center of the revitalization of the township economy. And it is in this province that the notion of the township economy was first mooted, and it has gained traction. And I know that the colleagues are even thinking and dreaming of a township stock exchange. I was particularly pleased, Premier, when I read MEC Barbara Creese's budget, because in her 2016 budget speech, she announced funding to upgrade 9 centers in Gauteng's townships into proper industrial parks and business hubs. Those include Orlando, Salisville, Residencia, Gauteng, Hammanskraal, Mabopane, Ennerdale, Alexandra, and Gauteng. Whoever thought that our townships would become an area of focus by the government? Whoever thought that would happen? Now, it is happening here in Gauteng. And the focus that this Gauteng government is giving to driving the growth of the township economy can be seen in the commitment that the government of this province is having. And MEC Creasy said that she heard the cry from small business during the Ntirisano program, which was launched by the Premier for financial and non-financial support to boost township economy. Through this initiative, the Gauteng government has proven that it does respond to the needs of the people, because it is those people who are in Soweto, it is those people who are in Ekurhuleni, those people who are in Mabopane, who are in Atteridgeville, that we need to be responding to, because they are the people who count and really matter. Established business also has an important role to play. And I'm glad to see that there are quite a number of people from larger businesses and established business, because they provide economies of scale, they provide access to markets, a wealth of expertise, and the ability to mobilize capital. It has both a responsibility that is big business to support the development of emerging small businesses through procurement activities and opportunities, and to access finance, skills development, and to support them, to nurture them so that they too can grow. Gauteng is unique in that it is home within a relatively small area to huge metros which the Premier at the rally on Saturday called the corridors of growth. And it was pleasing to hear the Premier talk about the corridors of growth at a political rally where he was campaigning for votes. And he said, we've got corridors of growth And this, for me, demonstrated the seriousness and the sincerity of turning Gauteng into a real hub of growth. And Johannesburg is a hub of financial and ICT. Ekurhuleni is a metro where the manufacturing hub of the province is. Tshwane is a hub of the automotive sector. And this provides the basis for differentiated but complementary economic development trajectories. Gauteng is also the beneficiary of significant inward migration. While this places substantial strain on the province's social infrastructure, as well as services, it does mean that the province has a young and enthusiastic and growing workforce. The density of the population, while it can present social challenges, lends itself to greater innovation and productivity. And it is indeed, when one is faced with challenges like these, Premier, when one is faced with great difficulties like these, of having so many people coming into Gauteng, that the innovative juices, the innovative talent does serve to the top. This is when we need to be more creative. This is when we need to find more solutions of how to deal with it. The NDB talks about how we can, on a special basis, reconfigure the contours of our country. And indeed, in Gauteng's case, it is how we can reconfigure the special contours of our province. Presents a challenge, but also presents great opportunity and great hope for a better outcome. This underscores the province's emphasis of the integration of economic opportunities, the transport corridors, the human settlements that the province is grappling with. As we meet at this Indaba, we must pay particular attention to the challenge of youth unemployment. Until the young people of Gauteng are able to acquire skills and find employment, the economic potential of this great city region will remain unfulfilled. Our challenge is not only to help young people to find jobs, but also to support those who want to create those jobs. We must harness young people's ingenuity. We must harness young people's energy, their courage, their impatience, and appetite for progressive change. We must recognize young people as dynamic agents of change who are capable of finding diverse, innovative, and creative solutions to problems. We must encourage innovation and entrepreneurship. And we must trust young people. Give them the resources. Give them the opportunities. Give them the space. And if we do that, and yes, give them money. Give them money as well. And it is when we do that, that you will see the creativity that comes out of there. That we will see what they will do with the opportunities that we give them, the money that we give them, and everything else that we create for them to create a better future for themselves. We must build an economy in which all may meaningfully participate. We must build an economy that brings relief, that also brings hope and sustenance. It is the people who are in our townships that we must give hope to. And in this room is the brain's trust, I would say, of this province to do precisely that. Everyone sitting here is part of that brain's trust, who can unlock their thinking capabilities and come up with a whole range of solutions that can help grow our economy. We must build an economy that restores the wealth of this province and this country to its people. Premier, I want to leave you with just one thought. It is common knowledge that governments play a determinant role in the generation of economic growth because the state is often the only entity that can provide stimulus to economic growth through a variety of instruments. And historically, this is what has often happened. Whenever economies are facing great challenges, everyone looks to the government. Everyone looks to the state to provide the stimulus to grow the economy. And the same obtains today, both at national, provincial, and as well as at local level. I was particularly pleased one day when I went to Tshwane, and I heard about this campaign that the mayor had started of, was it 10,000 something, 10,000 something? Tsepo 10,000. Now, initially when I heard about this, I said, it's one of those. And as I went through Soshanguve and met young people who were part of this 10,000, Tsepo 10,000 initiative, young people who were filled with hope, young people who were filled with enthusiasm. Many of them were not yet part of this Tsepo 10,000, but they were hopeful. A few of them were already participating, and others were being considered. They were about to participate. Others were still on the outside, and that created a vibe. That created hope. That generated a great feeling amongst those young people. And this is precisely what is needed. And this is what I had at that table. I come back to that table. This is precisely what is needed. It is the government that should create that stimulus. But having created it, it is the private sector that must then follow suit. It must follow suit because it is when it follows suit that we begin to have that economic growth that we want. Gauteng has a number of interesting opportunities and possibilities. It is the manufacturing hub of the country. There are great opportunities for upgrading the contribution of manufacturing to the GDP of Gauteng beyond 16 to 25%. The Statistician General, as he gives his statistics, often poses a question. He says, we have achieved so much. We've done so much to improve the lives of our people. And he says, we have a huge burden. Where is this going to be sustainable? Are we going to have the resources? This is what he was saying last week. The resources to sustain it, to make it grow. Where are the resources going to come from? And I want to hasten to say, they are going to come from this province. It is this province that is going to create those resources. And it is through this one sector, the manufacturing sector, where we can create those resources. Manufacturing is practically the only sector with the capability or capacity to coherently lead sustainable economic recovery that can result in the creation of jobs on a meaningful scale. This is the one chance that we have. There is considerable evidence that manufacturing production almost never really expands unless there is strong government support. And my call to the provincial government is that focus on the manufacturing sector. Ensure that there is that growth that goes forward. And indeed, do not let up any focus on other sectors. I'm glad to note that the Gauteng government is determined not only to support business, but also to have a close partnership with business so as to engender economic growth and create jobs, especially for young people. This is the Premier's focus. It is through supporting manufacturing that we will be able to crowd in the private sector, to invest, and to create mutually beneficial opportunities for small and medium enterprises. We often say We want the private sector to come in and invest. The private sector often waits to see the extent of government's commitment to a particular sector. And here in Gauteng, you have much more than government commitment. They are mad about being committed to grow this economy. So as the private sector, you must follow suit, because these guys are focusing on various sectors and they want to grow this economy. This calls for boldness, and they are bold. The type of boldness for which the Gauteng government has very clearly demonstrated that it has an appetite for. They are bold, they are determined, and they want this economy to grow. I have no doubt that the deliberations of this Indaba and the actions that will necessarily follow from here will once again confirm that Gauteng is not only the economic hub of the country, but it is indeed at the center of everything that happens in South Africa. Gauteng, therefore, carries the future of South Africa on its shoulders. Whether you like it or not, when you are in Gauteng, just know that this province is not only special, but it carries the future of this country on its shoulders. Gauteng, therefore, dare not fail. And I want to end, as I was traveling here, I thought about this province and wrote a little poem about this wonderful province. Gauteng, Gauteng. The province of my home. You have always occupied a special and welcoming place in the hearts and lives of many South Africans. You continue to welcome everyone from far and afield. Many have crafted their dreams and their lives around you. You are the smallest of provinces, and yet you have the biggest embrace. Many continue to come to you. They find shelter, they find hope, they find homes, they find comfort, wealth, and health. They also find hopelessness, poverty, inequality, and unemployment. You also shatter some dreams. But you can offer more to all. You are stronger than you appear. You are more than the sum of your parts. Lift your arms and embrace all, and inject progress in the sinews and the lives of the people of this province. Root out poverty and inequality. Create jobs. Be my Gauteng. Be our Gauteng. Be our golden hope. Rise, Gauteng, rise. Thank you very much.